Hey everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of the history of fashion. Today we will cover the Middle Ages on to the 14th to the 17th century. During the Middle Ages and up to the 17th century, fashion began to change at a very rapid rate, becoming more prominent due to the use of boats, exploration from individuals such as Marco Polo, Christopher Columbus, and many others, allowing the ideas of trading to flourish, bringing in new jewels, fabric, techniques that were once learned by other cultures. This has also helped the fashion move at a faster rate. And we also got to see this change within generations. V-necks, known as surcoats that were worn by queens, were now sported, and other items that were once for the elite can now be seen worn by the masses. Just like in the Greek and Roman times, certain fashion trends were still there, and it made its way through the Middle Ages and into the 14th century. We still see items such as tunics, which are now called coats or coati. They were worn and dyed in bright fabrics. They also wore hopelins that are considered to be a long coat with an attached high collar. We can also tell that during these times, this was the first site of Gothic fashion. During these times, the church was the government, and they made it apparent that women had to wear veils to showcase their modesty. While that was a requirement, women began to accessorize and creating veils using items such as muslin and silk. Girdles were still worn by women, but became more popular during the Middle Ages. The major difference is that with access to jewels, they can now bejewel their girdles to showcase their higher status. Smaller purses were also worn and attached at the belts. Fibers during these times were also spun into yarn by using a spinning wheel. During these times, the best way to hold your garments together was to use buttons, something that was completely different, as before they would use the tying and wrapping techniques. Also, instead of sandals, we could see the introduction of the pointed shoe, allowing comfortability and more sturdiness. While chemists were still the main attraction in the turn of the new century, dresses began to drastically change by becoming more fitted with a flare. The correct term for these are now called the coati hardis, and they were also made of wool. Men wore breeches with long skirts and belts tied around the waist. While there wasn't much of a drastic change, we began to see more fabrics and embroidery techniques. The renowned 16th century is best known as the Renaissance. From painting, music to fashion, and many other things, this time period began to set trends due to the middle class's ability to create their own items that were very similar to the elites, making the blurred lines of social status blend together. Hats and headpieces became more feathered and adorned. Wool became the most popular fabric, while silk followed right behind in second. The techniques of slashing became more popular. These techniques helped reveal the bright colors of inner garments and linings. A-line dresses became very popular in the mid-century, while ruffled necks were cut high with petticoats being revealed in the center of the dresses. Women also could be found wearing boneless corsets, while men wore trousers and long stockings. Clothing during this time was very similar to the 16th century, but the style of elegance began to take over. Men wore doublets, and women wore gowns with waistlines beginning to rise higher, and padding were removed to give comfortability. Men pants, now known as breeches, were less baggy, and women's sleeves were cut shorter. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you tune in for part 3, where we will cover the 18th to the 21st century.